from Mexico City. Hi. All right, so I am back again with another episode, and I'm chilling in beautiful Mexico City today. It's our last day here. And I just thought that I would sit down and try to record this podcast episode before we head out because it's just gorgeous and it's still really hot, really warm, good weather. So I'm in a good mood. All right, so today I want to talk about power. So, just for some housekeeping, I'm basically just a couple days away from the end of my North America tour. So, shout out to you if you were at any of my shows in New York, LA, Mexico City. And honestly, I'm going to be so real with you guys here because this is my diary and I really can't do what I want. But the lead up to this like mini North America tour that I've been doing has been like very up and down in terms of just like certain behind the scenes events, like both in my personal and professional life. But I do have to say that actually playing the shows has been incredible. Like, I love meeting you guys face to face in person. It actually makes everything feel real. Do you get what I mean? Like, it brings me to the present moment and into a state of complete and total gratitude because I get to actually see the impact and the results of all of this effort and this hard work and all this love that's being generated as a result of the art. And it really is just like this crazy special thing to be an artist in this world. And I never take it for granted. I know I complain like all the time. I complain so much. Oh my God. But I truly, like, I never take it for granted. I'm so grateful. Like, these memories are very precious to me. But anyway, I'm going to try to edit and post this episode by this weekend. Fingers crossed if all goes well. I had actually recorded a version of this when I was in LA like 10 days ago, like 2 weeks ago. But I honestly, I didn't like it. So I'm just going to do it over. Yeah. So here we go. So, as a lot of you know, I've just finished reading the Marion Woodman book, Addiction to Perfection, over this past month. And this one has been such a doozy. Like, I swear, like, I had to put the book down every couple of pages because it was just so intense. And it was reflecting back so much of what is happening to me and how I was and am being transformed in this moment in time. You know, it was kind of spooky. But I believe books always find us when we need them, you know, and that's definitely been the case my whole life. And I feel like I always find a very poignant book when I'm on the verge of some great change. And this year has been an entire year of great change. A lot of endings, like, and definitely some beginnings for sure, but definitely lots and lots and lots of endings. And I was reading that according to numerology, it's apparently a 9 year for the world. And nine as a number is all about endings, closing of chapters, the tip of the spiral, the conclusion to the story. And then next year, 2026 will be a 1 year. So something brand new will begin next year. It'll be like all about new energy, new stories, new vibes. And if I'm being completely honest, I cannot fucking wait. Like, I've been feeling a distinct ending to this phase of my life, my career, my public identity, the way that I go about my work. And I mean, like, if you've been following diaries, you already know because you probably heard me again complaining about it a lot. But it's just, it's real, you know? And sometimes, like, when things are ending, an ending can take a really long time, like right now. But that's okay because we need endings in order to have new beginnings. And you know, Sabina Spielrein, mother of psychoanalysis, she wrote about this. She wrote about the like life, death, life cycle. And I was revisiting some of her work recently and just thinking about how, as human beings, in the same way that we desire pleasure and eros, we also desire death and Thanathos. Like, one defines and balances the other. They work together and we need both. You know, both are conduits of our expressions of power. Maybe I should say, like, our will to power, which I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk all about power. But yeah, like, if you're on the verge of a transformation, definitely read the Marion Woodman book that I was talking about. I'm going to put it in the description. But especially if you're a woman, I would highly, highly recommend reading this book. Honestly, read any of her books. Like, she's so good. Like, if you are ready to take responsibility for yourself and for your life, you need to read some Marion Woodman. And this book in particular is what has partially inspired this episode. And I have a lot to say, so I'm going to try to cover a lot in a little bit of time. So bear with me. And yeah, let us begin. Okay, so originally I was going to talk about the now infamous Goon Squad article from Harper's magazine. Like, I had a whole spiel about it, but I'm not going to go too in depth on that today because I kind of decided to shift gears. But very quickly, so this Goon Squad article was an article that was written about the internet subculture of gooners, which are basically a sort of like internet masturbation porn cults kind of thing. Like, that's literally like what it's all about. It's just like jerking off to porn like all day, every day. You can Google it and you can find out more, but just a warning, like at your own peril, okay? But anyway, I had wanted to bring up that article because I was interested in something that I keep seeing these days, which is what I see as like a rise in this phenomena of neets or like hikikomori like subcultures, which if you haven't heard about them, it's basically people who live reclusive and sedentary lives. Like, they don't work, they don't go to school, they don't have friends, they don't engage with people in real life. These people are completely isolated and they've totally withdrawn from society, like withdrawn from social life. And gooners are kind of part of the segment of the population because, you know, the whole idea is to give up your life to something outside of yourself, which in this case is pornography, but it could be anything, you know, video games, the internet, online shopping, social media, whatever. And to my observation, it just seems like every year there are more and more people who are choosing to live this way, who are choosing to retreat from life. And it really had me thinking. I was like, why? Like, why are we as a society trending towards isolation and separation and reclusiveness? And, you know, of course, we can point to historical moments like COVID and lockdown and the whole pandemic as a sort of root of the current trends, but I feel like that's not the whole story. It was definitely an accelerator, but we've been trending this way culturally for a while, with some places obviously going faster than others, like, for example, Japan. And I'm interested in why, you know, because I feel like if you can understand why, you can present alternative routes, alternative futures, you can have hope, which, if you've been listening to diaries, you know, that's the tip that I'm on, all about hope frequencies, you know? And I also wanted to look at this cultural moment through a kind of like morally neutral framework as well, where it's not about like condemning people for choosing to retreat from life, because I just don't think that that solves anything, you know? Like, I saw a lot of really cruel statements towards both the writer of that article, his name is Daniel Kolitz, and also towards the subjects of, you know, his research, like the Gooners. And it's like what Mark Fisher was talking about with his criticisms of the left. Like, it's one thing to diagnose a problem and to look at something and to be like, this is wrong, this is bad. But you have to present alternative futures. Like, you have to present hope frequencies. And in order to do that, I think you have to have empathy. You know, who you think is your enemy on the outside, you will find within. And that's what I want to do. I just don't think it's useful to like talk down on these people in a very like condescending or just like morally punishing way. Because, like, for example, like, even if I have a disgust reaction to something like the Gooners, which I do, I still have empathy for them. And I can see in their behavior the patterns of consumption that are an expression of whatever is going on with the collective unconscious, you know? At one point, the author, he makes the claim that Gooners are no different from the average person who's addicted to their phones. It's a similar pattern of behavior. It's, you know, fixation, scrolling, mindless consumption, etc. And obviously, pornography is definitely different from a Get Ready With Me, but these are both forms of a kind of digital fetishism where digital content acts as a substitute for having a real life. Like, it's basically the idea of, I don't have to get ready, I can watch someone else get ready. I don't have to play the video game, I can watch somebody play the video game. I don't have to have sex, I can watch somebody have sex. Like, do you get what I mean? And I just want to understand why this is happening and why human beings are making this choice. Because when something is happening en masse like this, like, I do believe that it is an expression of the collective unconscious. Like there's something going on in our shared culture. And, I've definitely talked about this before. Like I do think that there is a growing sentiment of nihilism and anxiety across society, and people are looking for ways to self-soothe. And remember, I mentioned this in the Resist the Slop episode, how we're being inundated daily with messaging and structures that influence our lives in such a way that reinforces the idea that life is hard and that our situations are hopeless and that we do not matter, which is not the truth, by the way. Like that is not true, but it's one of the ways that people are being cut off from their personal power. It's one of the reasons why people are choosing to retreat from life and from the responsibility of actually living one's own life, like actually having to live one's own life. And, really recently, actually, like just last week, I read this article by Rob Arcand in N+1 magazine, where he talks about the financialization of culture. His article is called The Same Stream Twice. And the basis of what he's saying is that cultural products, so that's things like music, films, painting, like really art of any kind, they're all being turned into financial assets. And I want to be clear, it's not just that they're products, because, that was already a thing. We were already consuming art as products. But what is happening now is very different. It's art as a financial asset. Financial assets are not bound by the same laws of reality as a product is. For something to be a product, it has to actually exist so that it can be bought and sold. But a financial asset can be purely speculative. So, for example, all these investment firms like BlackRock and Blackstone or whatever, they are buying up giant swaths of music catalogs, which, mind you, they're doing in cahoots with the record labels. Okay. So let that be clear. But they're not buying the music catalogs to buy a song or an album to own it. They're buying the music catalogs because they're redefining music as an asset class. Like, think of it like with housing, how that changed from you used to buy a house to own it, maybe to rent it out, to now where it's like people and entire companies buy houses just to let them sit empty while they wait for the future speculative value of housing to go up. That future speculative value is what they've actually bought. It's the same thing for the sale of these music catalogs and these investment firms. Like, to them, a house and an album might as well be the same thing. Like, it doesn't actually matter, the actual product itself doesn't matter. It's about the speculative value. And if you want to go even deeper, there is something in finance called derivatives. Okay. So Arcand, he mentioned this in his article, but a derivative is essentially a bet. It is a legal form of betting on financial assets. So if you bet that in like 3 years, this music catalog will be speculatively worth $1 billion, that bet itself is worth money. And the thing is that you can layer bets on top of bets. Like, you can actually bet on bets. Like, do you see how this is all just like a house of cards? Like, most of the money that is being made in financial markets is not even about things or products themselves. Like, it's crazy. It's beyond buying and selling. It is the fantasy of buying and selling. When something becomes a financial asset, nothing material has to actually be bought and sold. A financial asset can be completely made up and completely imaginary because it is no longer about the thing itself, but rather it's about the fucking simulacra. Like, guys, Baudrillard was fucking right. Like, representation has become more powerful than reality. And I have started saying recently that everything is a fucking casino now, because it is. Everything is being financialized. Everything is being turned into a financial asset. And all of the so-called money that is being made is not even about the material asset itself. It's about the bets and the chips and the guesses and the wagers and the parlays. Like, everything is a casino now. And I think that this is a big part of why people are choosing to retreat and remove themselves from real life. Like, the financialization of our material reality, it affects us on a soul level. Like, we can feel that we are no longer living in a real world, but rather an abstracted world where logic and time and place and purpose, they're all being eroded and obscured and eradicated. 1 + 1 does not equal 2 in this world. everything is just like too abstract now. It's kind of like what I was talking about with the digital fetishism, where it's like, I don't have to play the video game. I can watch someone play the video game. I don't have to have sex. I can watch someone have sex. Like, I don't have to get a life. I can watch someone stay in my life, and so on and so on. Like, this is a logic of financialization that's being adopted as the cultural philosophy of our times. Like, this is what late stage capitalism is all about. Like, do you guys remember that meme of the lady on the plane where she's like, that motherfucker over there is not real? Oh my God. Like, this is what we are going through collectively right now. And the thing is, like, if we feel like the world is not real, of course, we're going to feel like we do not have any power. And when I say power, I'm talking about the ability to act upon the world around you, the ability to influence and impact matter. And everyone has power. You know, this is a truth, full stop. But if we are living in a abstracted world, it's not going to feel like that. You know, how can you be expected to act upon a world that doesn't exist? How are you expected to act upon a mirage? You know, no wonder then that we have all this nihilism. And just to like bring it back to Baudrillard and his, you know, banger of a book like Simulacra, Simulation, or whatever, maybe it's the other way around. But in his book, he infers how living in a hyper reality causes depression and melancholia and apathy and a kind of like paralysis and indifference, because we become so overwhelmed with the sheer volume of simulation and all the copies of copies of copies and all these motherfucking derivatives, you know? And all of that just like made me think of AI in regards to consumption, financialization, art, power, and agency. Like, I recently posted on my Debbie Friday Instagram story about the first AI artist that charted on Billboard. I don't know if you've heard of this. Her name is like Zania Monet, and it's by this woman. See, I don't even know the woman's name, but I know the AI's name. But this woman is behind it. And I did some investigating, and basically, like, this woman, she says that she writes poetry, which I'm sorry, but like looking from the lyrics, like, that's all AI generated. Like, it is, you know? So she says that she writes this poetry and then she feeds it into a music making AI, which I think is Suno. I think that's the one she's using. And then the AI will transform what she's written into full songs with production, vocals, everything. Like, after I saw all of this, I just kind of like sat there and I thought to myself, like, why? You know? And I also thought, what would Baudrillard say about this? Like, you guys, you know that I'm not a Luddite. Like, I love computer, of course. And I personally, I've used AI for research purposes, and I know people who use AI in their workflows. And I think that it is a very useful tool. You know, I think that there's a place for it. But when I see something like what this woman is doing, where the AI is basically just doing everything for her, it just doesn't make any sense to me, you know? There's no logic there. Like, the referent has been lost, y'all. The plot has been lost. Like, and you know, this is the logic and philosophy of financialization at work. Like, you're not coding, you're not singing, you're not producing, you're not learning, you're not building a skill or a talent, you're not actually buying or selling. You're simply engaging in the fantasy of all of that. And something about this case in particular feels like it even goes beyond just an engagement with fantasy. Like, this lady is literally not doing anything, you know? Rather, it's almost like she's gone beyond just living through the simulation, but rather she's allowed herself, like, her human subjectivity to become simulation. Like, does that make sense? Like, do you get what I mean by that? Like, it's not just, I don't have to play piano, I can watch someone play piano. Instead, it is now, I don't have to play piano and I don't have to watch someone play piano. Computer can pretend to play piano. It's not even I can watch computer pretend to play piano. It is the removal of self, the removal of I, of a human subjectivity from the process of consumption. And this is what I think is the endpoint of all of this financialization. They're already saying that there's too many products being made to be consumed by all the humans on Earth. And part of consumption is now actually being done by AI. Like, for example, all the botting on streaming platforms. Like, we're going to have like AI making the music and then another AI listening to the song. And, you know, somebody's going to make money off that. And then somebody else makes money off of betting on that. And then somebody else makes money off of betting on that person's bet. Like, oh my God. It's moments like these that just like make me like stop and I have to like think. I'm just like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like actually, like what are we doing? Like what are we doing? Oh, this shit is crazy. And again, all of this, again, at its core, it is a retreat from life. It is a refusal to take up power and personal responsibility because creativity is power. The process of making art or making a real thing is power. And when you give that up to AI or computer or whatever, you are giving up on your life. And I don't want you to give up on your life. You know, you matter and you deserve to live, to truly, truly live your life. And because, you know, I mean what I say, and I'm going to walk my talk, I'm going to give you guys some hope frequencies and some ideas I've had around how to take responsibility for yourself and how to nurture and use your power. I'm on my Mark Fisher tip. Like, we need hope, you know, acknowledging that there is something spiritually wrong in modern culture and society. It doesn't mean that you give up and you let this shit run rampant and allow yourself to ruin your life. Remember what I said in the Resist the Slop episode. That's what slop wants. It wants to consume and subsume you. But this is your life. This is your one precious life. And it is time to reach for those hope frequencies and to take responsibility for yourself. And that is where you begin, actually. You know, you have to understand that you have to take responsibility for yourself, not the state, not your parents, not your friends or your family. You have to be the one to take up the mantle of your life. It is on you, you know, and you will receive help from universal forces and from those that love you. But ultimately, it is all on you and no one else is going to live your life for you. You know, we know this. Like, the universe could put everything in perfect order and within super easy reach, but if you don't make the move, it's not going to happen. No one can live your life for you, no matter how many Get Ready With Me videos you watch. Like, this is the nature of our reality. It is subjective. You have to be the one to live your life. And, you know, I know that the root of this avoidance of self responsibility is fear. People are afraid. They're afraid of making mistakes, of making the wrong choice or making the wrong decision. People are afraid of negative emotions, of negative consequences. They're afraid of, you know, all the pressure that comes with responsibility. And, you know, I get it. Responsibility is scary. And it's a lot of pressure because it means that sink or swim, you are the only one to blame. But that also means that you're the only one to thank. You know, you get all the credit, good and bad. And just because the consequences can be serious doesn't mean that you can avoid making choices. Because refusal is a choice as well. Avoidance is a choice. Giving into fear is a choice. And Teal Swan, my girl, oh my God, I know that she's a controversial figure, but she's another person that, like, they could never make me hate her. But Teal Swan has this amazing video on how to get over the fear of responsibility. And I'm going to put that in the description as well, but definitely go and watch that video. Like, it will help you to understand and get over the fear of taking responsibility for your life. And she gives you really actionable steps to work with as well. And she just like really gets into the crux of this fear. What I like is that she talks about the illusion of it all, you know, because that's the thing with fear too. Fear is a trickster. It's the mind killer. It's a liar. Fear produces unreality. It always feels bigger than whatever is actually happening. And that's why when someone wants to control or manipulate you, it's always way easier for them to do so if you are in a state of fear. And the only way to combat this is to starve the fear. Again, like, remember what I said in the Resist the Slop episode. We have to starve the fear. The fear is how we are being controlled and slopified. The root of a slop is fear. It is the fear of real life. It is the fear of change. It is the fear of God and the fear of power itself. Slop romanticizes powerlessness to get you to think that it's better to be powerless than powerful. Let me go on a little tangent here, but Mark Fisher, he talked about something adjacent to this in his work. In his critiques of the political left, he had this idea of the fetishization of anti-power and self-defeat. Basically, the idea that power is presented as something unsavory, unwanted, and evil, and it's something to be guilty of rather than as a good and right thing to possess. And I'm going to borrow and build upon this idea of his. I would argue that in these times of simulacra, power is being presented as something other than what it is. Hyper reality locates power as existing outside of the self. Again, it's this thing of, I don't have to get ready. I can watch someone else get ready. I don't have to live my life. I can watch someone else live their life. And through this, through locating power as existing outside of the self, it starts to reify powerlessness as an intrinsic good. Like, for example, just think of all the ways in which having a victim complex was and is used as a social currency. Like, this is exactly what Mark Fisher was talking about in his work, like this idea that snuck into progressivism. During the 2010s that said that if I'm subjugated, then I'm good. And if I'm the most subjugated, then I'm the most good. And that's why people started playing Oppression Olympics and started using identity as a fucking social hierarchy trading cards. And, I know you guys remember Woke 1.0. Like, I know you guys remember that. And I know you remember the insanity that was Tumblr and identity politics. Like, nothing got done, but everybody got to feel really good about themselves for having subjugated identities. Like, oh my God, like I have to laugh. Okay. Anyway, this is just the easiest example, but what I'm trying to say is that this hyper reality that we live in generates a self-defeating ideology when it comes to power. And if we are already defeated in our minds, we will be defeated in the world. If you are constantly being told that good people do not have power, you're not going to want to become powerful. You're going to hole up in your room, retreat from life, and you're going to use whatever you can to soothe that existential anxiety. And we have to resist this narrative. We have to reorient and acknowledge that it is good to be powerful. Good people are powerful people. Good people are people who can and will act upon the world around them. And another side note, but recently I've also been playing with the idea that goodness must be earned. And like when I say that out loud, like my first impulse is literally to be like, no, like everyone's good, you shouldn't have to earn goodness, like blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Like, I actually don't think that that holds up in our current dilemma. I do think that everyone is born with a clean moral slate. I believe that children are innocent, but I'm starting to think that goodness is something that has to be cultivated through action, responsibility, and character. Aristotle talks about this, his virtue ethics. He talks about how virtue is acquired by doing. You become virtuous through repeated action and habituation. And I just like this idea a lot because I think it gives everyone a fair shake. Like, you're not just at the mercy of the fates or whatever you inherit from your parents. It's more like, okay, we all come into the world with whatever we come into the world with, whatever cards you're dealt. And then it is your responsibility to make good with that. It is your responsibility to act upon the world and arrange the cards in such a way that you can be proud of. Your life is yours to make. And if you want to be good, then you get the chance to work towards that. You have to show your proof. You have to show your pudding. I just really like that idea. Like, I think that it relocates power back into your hands, which is where it's always been all along. That's the next point. Once you take responsibility for yourself, you have to do the work. You have to get up and act on the world. And it's through doing this work, through actually taking action and exerting your power on the world around you, this is how things are going to change. This is how we're going to create an alternative future. You have to choose to participate in life, in this world that we share together. The things that you say and do, they matter. They have an effect on the world around you. The simulacra, slop, industrial complex wants you to believe otherwise, but that's just not true. Like, I honestly feel like if people knew how much their words and actions mattered, we would have such a different world. And beyond Baudrillard, like, we can take this all the way back to my fucking political science and women's studies degree that is sitting somewhere in my parents' garage. I'm thinking back to like Adorno and Foucault and what's his name, like Paulo Freire, Pablo, I don't remember. But he's the guy who wrote Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And, all these guys, they talk about how we internalize oppression or surveillance or abuse and the effect that this has on our psychology. And they talk about how this internalization makes you think that you can't get free and that nothing you do matters, but you matter. And the things that you say and do matter so much. And this is why you must know your power, which is to say why you must know yourself, because this is the only way that you're going to be able to take responsibility for your life and to free yourself. And we must free ourselves, okay? We absolutely, absolutely must free ourselves. And guys, like, I may not have all the answers for how we get out of this, like, socioeconomic mess that we're all in, all this financialization and blah, blah, blah. But what I do know and believe is that nothing is going to change until we free our minds. The most important place to free yourself is in your mind. Everything else can be taken from you, but not your mind, not the knowledge and the wisdom and the thoughts that you have earned in this life. That is yours forever. And this is why knowing thyself is knowing thy power. I actually had a nail set like 2 weeks before I went on tour where I had know thyself written on my nails. And you know what? It was actually such a good set. I call them my philosophy nails, and I really liked them because I could look at them every day and just be reminded of this mantra. Damn, I kind of miss them. I might do those again. But anyway, knowing thyself is knowing thy power. And you need to take time to understand yourself and who you are and what you are here to give the world. Knowing yourself takes you out of the realm of the symbolic and it makes you real. Knowing yourself allows you to locate your locus of agency, your sovereignty, that special core from which you can then take action from and exert power from. And that special core, that's all the stuff that makes you you. It's all of your good, all your bad, all your dark, all your light, like everything between. In the Marion Woodman book that I mentioned way earlier, Addiction to Perfection, she talks about how we must be participants in our own destiny. And part of doing that is facing the shadow, doing the integrative work, choosing to individuate, choosing to engage with life, choosing to truly know ourselves. And like I said in the last episode, the star-shaped episode, this is not easy or light work. Like, let that be clear, It can be really, truly painful to face yourself in your totality, but it is necessary and always worth it. The reason that it's so painful is because it's not about abstraction. It's about concretizing. It's about coming into the body and the life and the soul and the world around you. Facing yourself makes you real. And when you're real, you're powerful. This is how we resist a nihilistic philosophy and a nihilistic culture. Freud had this idea that the work of life was the battle between the life instinct and the death instinct, between eros and thanathos. And I think, of course, he was onto something there. Knowing thyself is a lifelong journey of balancing your light and your shadow. And it is within that balancing that we find our power. This is the work of our lives, guys. Like, we have to rise to this occasion. Like I said, no one else is going to do this work for you. No one is coming to save you. I can only tell you what I know, what I've been through, but you have to be the one to free yourself. You owe it to yourself. You matter enough to do this for you. And back to Woodman for a second, there's this one part of the book that I want to quote. On page 160, she says, "It is the self, the ordering center of the personality, that presents the ego with the challenge to move to a new level of consciousness. If the ego is afraid to make the passover, preferring to clutch at what it has always known, then psychological and physiological symptoms break out. These the ego has to deal with, for learning the meaning of these symptoms and situations is what leads to the new level of awareness and a new harmonious balance between consciousness and the unconscious. So long as consciousness is afraid to open itself to the otherness of the unconscious, it experiences itself as the victim. Once it is able to open itself to the new life flying through, it becomes the beloved." And as always, this Canadian queen is right. There will be opposition and obstacles in life, everyone suffers, etc., etc. But this is not for us to fear. It is part of the point, obstacles and oppositions. These are all part of the ways in which we get the opportunity to exercise our power. They give us the ability to see what we are made of. They give us the ability to develop integrity and self-esteem and consciousness and to take responsibility for ourselves. Knowing yourself gives you the tools you will need to face anything and everything. When you know yourself, even if you don't know what it is that you're going to do, you're going to make different choices. Like, trust me, I am going through this right now. And it always comes back to knowing myself, going deeper, going darker, etc., etc. And, even building upon what she said about the ego being presented with challenges, I do think that coming into your power and doing this work of knowing thyself does require a kind of ego death in a way. You know, what I've been talking about this entire time is really about this idea of radical responsibility, taking the blame and the credit for everything in your life. You're the hero and you're also the villain of your story. This is why it is up to you to free yourself. And I know that you can do it. I know that you can. And something that I'm also very aware of is that to do this kind of work requires the utmost bravery. And bravery requires that you do it scared. You know, we have to starve the fear, yes, but you're not doing it wrong if you're scared. Hell, like, I'm on my millionth life cycle and I'm still scared, you know? Like, I still get very afraid, but I'm going to do what I need to do anyway because I want to be brave. And I know that I'm powerful. And I know that you are as well. So you too, you have to go out into the world and be brave and take your power because no one is going to give it to you. And you know, all these theorists, Baudrillard, Debord, Ferrer, Foucault, Fisher, Spielrein, like they give us the framework that we need to understand what is happening, but then it is up to us to do something with that. That's why I always believe that the best art is fruitful. It's reproductive. It inspires people to become more of themselves, whatever that may look like. And I just really hope that this episode and these diaries and me speaking to you about what I know can also help to give you the gift of yourself in a way. You know, I really am a fucking be the change you wish to see in the world type of bitch. Like, I really think that the way forward through all of this is to kind of rebuild reality from the inside out. And that starts with you, you know? Anyway, yeah, I think that's where I'm going to end for today. Kevin just made us breakfast. And we are leaving for the airport in literally like 15 minutes. But I just wanted to like get this out so badly before I leave. And maybe I'll see if I can edit this on the plane or something. But yeah, in other news, last show of the tour is in Chicago on Friday. Not sure when this episode's going to be out, but if I see you there, I see you there. And yeah, okay. That's it, guys. Let us all take responsibility for ourselves and get free, bitches. All right. I love you. Bye.